Hello and welcome back to the Cronos Watcher. Apologies for the break over the couple of days. Had some serious technological issues with a very long recording I did. Kind of held everything up, trying to research it all and keep up with some in real life stuff. So back with you in the meantime, at least on YouTube. Been keeping up with things, some small updates on Twitter and that. It's been a really crazy week, so hopefully this time we can do a nice long form thing. I'm going to make sure that that's the case because I want to do longer videos in the long term. So we'll do a sort of a week 13 recap at least this time now. So hopefully we can record the entire time and it'll go without a hitch. Let me set it up here. So we will start the usual way. We'll go through the Mad Meerkat stuff and everything, but we have a lot of general things to keep an eye on, new tokens and everything. So let's jump right into it. So MMF here. Over the course of the week now, we've had another real dip up, return to stardom as such. You can see on the 4 hour here, we've had a bit of a correction today already, and yesterday throughout the 7th and the 8th. So if we look at this in the daily, it's going to look not too bad. Yeah, you can see we just have a bit of a toppy candle. So we hit a high, it seems, of 182 finally on MMF. So if we zoom out here over the course of the week, very strong movement. And I will bring a calendar up in front of me real quick as well so that I can get the weekdays correct and everything. So if we're looking at the 29th, that is the Tuesday and the Wednesday of last week. So on the Wednesday was the last time we had looked at it together at least, and we opened at 131 and closed at 144. So we started a very strong uptrend, continuation of uptrend there after the start of the week, and the week before with our little correction sort of ranging and then moving up. Now that we've taken a break ourselves from on the channel and we've been away for a while, you can see that it's starting to now correct itself and that it seems we might have a bit of a top here. You can see that there's 2 days now of those sort of inverted hammers. Quite a lot of volume to look at. 51 million on the 4th, and then moving through the days, 49 5th, 30 on the 6th, and 30 again on the 7th. So very healthy volume the entire time, which has been sort of doing a small uptrend of its own. If we zoom out here and pull the chart off, you can see that we've had some nice big increases in the volume over the course of the week. If we take a look at, just to use it as a bit of a guide at least for the current trajectory on MMF, you can see that the MACD here is just not, again, the most reliable indicator in DeFi and something so all over the place, but you can see that we're already starting to make a general move downwards. Now, given that this is a 4 hour, it's using the closes again for its indications. So we can pretty much tell looking at this that we have some sort of a cooling off and a top found here at the 180 range. You can see that the MACD is completely overextended in its ranges. Our daily is still pretty much useless. So that's something we're just going to have to wait for time to print out. But you can see here as well, dropping off in our volume histogram here. So that's going to be an indication if this move plays out here and we see our EMEA start to move together, and as we would expect here now with this big move on the daily, this will be its first printing of some form of average. And yeah, sure, it can keep moving up here and everything and keep printing beyond this 2 points level on the MACD, and do some serious moves upwards. But eventually this indicator and the way it prints its statistical analysis is going to have to show us a downside somewhere. And actually, I would say a healthier move and something that would be good for the ecosystem right now would be to see that happen sooner rather than later. So given that we might see some form of a top here, we'd want to watch out for some sort of like 170 and 165 and 60 ranges being tested. The other thing we know about DeFi and how all over the place it is that those ranges can be tested within a day, which can cause some sort of a cascading move. Now, the only thing we have behind us is the amount of liquidity locked on the platform, which stands much to our advantage because we can kind of rely on that to stop any kind of cascade or anything from here. So we're looking now at MMF as something sort of different. It's been listed on the crypto.com exchange. It has huge amounts of volume every day, which if you're in the LP, you're really benefiting from. So that's a huge amount of incentive for people not to be stepping out at the moment. And you can see here that an average increase in our volume, which is dropping off again after the excitement, would be an indicator that there is all the more money in the ecosystem now, moving around new addresses and everything like that. So that's going to be something exciting to watch for the end of the week. I'm going to say myself, I would expect some form of a cool off in MMF after this. Now, if you look at the percentage move, what have we got? 48% on itself here over the course of what have we got? Let's say since we started to sort of confirm the corrective move, which is this candle here I'm looking at on the 24th. It was a very, very positive range. So if we took that as our bottom there, as our correction, and moved up, it's 53% on itself now corrected. So that's a very hot point. You can see that it really, both times it moved anyway close to that 180 range. When it hit it there, it came straight back off the top of it. So that's an indication as well that we have a lot of watching for the ranges here, profit taking at the tops after such a strong move upwards from the Mad Meerkat ecosystem itself. And this is the thing, is that MMF now is kind of representing all of the news and everything that's happening around the token, and benefiting in revenue from a lot of what's happening. Certainly anything to do with the Mad Meerkat ecosystem itself, the MMF token is benefiting, not necessarily directly in like revenue shares and things like that in a crypto sense, but certainly from the news narrative, certainly from all of the excitement in the ecosystem. That's a very big thing for the MMF token. Again, we'd want to watch for a cool off here, especially after, if we look at this range alone, you can see here these candles on the 27th, the 29th, the 30th. The first and the third, they were all massive ranges, like kind of 10% each moves over just the course of a day. So that's definitely something to watch out for correcting here now. If we were to see, like if we look at the 4th of April, there was quite a drastic move downwards and a correction off it. And I believe that happened a couple of days before that as well. You can see here on the 4 hour, at least on the 31st, we had one negative candle print of 6%, so it was an open of 157 and all the way down to 147, and then we landed ourselves all the way down to a low on the 8 o'clock candle UTC, opening at 143 down to 129 low there, and then testing all the way back up within 12 hours or so. So not even in a day there, you're printing a move of, let's track it out for ourselves, 17% on itself, and then correcting within that. So huge amount of volume, but a huge amount of support as well for the token. I would imagine too that you can see now these sort of narratives playing out of massive corrective moves over the course of literally just 4 hour closings, and then corrections against them again within the next candle or the next 12 hours roughly all the time. It seems to be a bit of a pattern. The only thing we can see here now on the 4 hour is that when you kind of look at it averaged out like this, the volumes are starting to kind of cool off. We're looking at a lot less of those extremely volatile news narrative ecosystem moves. MMF starting to sort of bolster itself with so much liquidity and then being listed on the exchange. It's, there's so much liquidity locked that now these large moves, these large sells and these cascades, they seem to either get bought back up or correct themselves over the course of a couple of days. So that's why I would say we see continued uptrend here on MMF, but at the same time, really keeping an eye on the possibility of a cool off during the week, and the hope that that doesn't cause some sort of a cascade correction within these ranges that we've done here over the few days since the 26th, and kind of the 24th as well. You can see that that was a 10% move, quite large there. So again, those inverted hammers we're looking at, we have some really toppy signals here from MMF. So just want to watch for cooling off. And at the same time, might be an opportunity to buy the dip if it does that over a couple of days, especially if we were to see corrections here in MMF anywhere towards the 150 cents range. I would say $1.50, that might be a strong support point for it at the moment. There isn't much to indicate. I would say the strongest support point we had was around the 125 range at the moment, and after there we've basically had a lot of hopium buying in, so we definitely have a lot of new money. But again, just to repeat the point, quite a lot of liquidity locked now for the token itself and being traded on an exchange. All of the new money that's come in there, we can look for quite a volatile cool off, but the earlier points I made are reasons that it will find support quickly and easily. So we'll be keeping an eye again. We'll be back for the weekend, certainly on MMF. Very exciting. And what we want to look at is a lot of the tokens that have been causing both this run here and the cool off we're seeing, and their own pumps in and around the ecosystem. So Savannah here being the next one, the launchpad and the Tomb Fork attached to the MMF ecosystem. Just wait for it to load up here. You can see has done some ridiculous mammoth moves. We were talking about this sort of pattern that we were watching, which it did seem to kind of play out a little later than we thought, maybe about 10 days after the fact. So what do we have here from the, I suppose, after the 17th range, we'll say. And then within that 9 days it took, kind of corrected about 25%-ish. And then taking this absolutely mammoth run up to, what have we got here? So we so far this is supposed to cover them kind of separately. Let's zoom out. So the 29th of March had a run up, at least I'm going to say, to cover it to about here to the 4th of April. And that is what I'm looking at the calendar now, the Monday, of 55%. And you can see here that this is kind of bucked the trend of the last few weeks entirely. And what this was the fact that, what do we have? So the Mad Talk token launch, which I missed. I'm so sorry. There was a couple of tweets about it at least. That's what caused our first spike up, and then these ranges within there were the excitement around the token launch. I would imagine there were some sort of insider announcements, maybe Discord, maybe tweets that I missed at least, that hinted at further launches and further news. Maybe, the kind of hold on to the SVN, the Savannah token that you got back, hint, hint type thing. Because on the 1st of April, the April Fools, after we had some pretty scary correction for people who bought in, I'd imagine, you can see here on the 30th of March, we opened at 197, had a low of 156, huge dip there, and then closed at 181 again. Still had a negative candle then the next day on the 31st. And you can see that the confirmed volume in it, that downside close, was very, very small range there, very tight candle with two massive wicks either side. So huge volatility within a day, opening at 181, having a high of 206 and a low of 160. Some huge swings there if you were playing the game, if you were watching it. And then the next day, on the 1st of April, the April Fools opened at 181 and closed at 223, had a massive correction up there. And I'd imagine that's when we found out, or roughly around here is when we found out about the Pegasus dollar launch that would happen as well. So essentially we've had two launch pads over the course of the last week with SVN, and I am presuming that we have more news or something to look forward here with Savannah. I think I should check my phone even. Let's get ourselves over to News Chronos, because I believe there has already been another announcement of I think the 11th launch pad on Savannah. So I'm presuming that both the fact that we had 2 launch pads this week, and then people sort of realizing, the ecosystem realizing, and maybe large investors realizing, oh, Savannah is going to be used for this a lot. Now we're seeing some real pickup in the Savannah ecosystem itself and the token, and we'll cover MSHARE as a result here. But this is just the reward token. That's why I'm kind of fascinated by this. This is the reward token that is being printed out of the ecosystem, and essentially should technically always have an oversupply, because it's being printed out to those who are staking as a reward for keeping their funds on the platform and contributing to the TVL. And yet the price of it is skyrocketing against all meaningful reason, and that is because of the amount of launchpads that are happening through the platform. That is what's causing this, and I'm presuming, again, there may be other news to look for, but I'm presuming that this is continued excitement around that narrative and the possibility of making further gains down the line on other ICOs and etc. A bit of FOMO happening around the Savannah token, thinking, what if this is at X price down the line and I want to be involved in ICOs? May as well pick up a good chunk of it at the moment. So you can see here then, over the course of, let's say, from the 3rd of April, because on the 2nd we had another huge downside correction, massive range, down 15% again, probably getting sold maybe after the Pegasus launch, perhaps. The Pegasus dollar, we'll go into that. I'm trying to stay off that topic for now. That's for the timestamp at the end. But then from the 3rd all the way up here, you can see we have 18%, 19%, 6%, a bit of a slowdown yesterday on the 6th. And today then we have up 14% again, opening at 290, and it looks like we're going to close at 338, having hit a high of 360. So massive ranging there, really hard to call at the moment. If we look at the 4-hour, we can kind of see we've got a bit of a cooling off here. Certainly seeing some form of a top there. You can see it doesn't really look like an inverted hammer, but a massive wick range there with a very small candle on the 8 o'clock in the morning UTC opening today on the 7th, and that opened at 346. It had a high of 360, that's where we printed that, but then a low of 332. So and on the 12 o'clock today we printed down another 3%, opening at 346 and closing at 332. So we can expect some cooling off in the next couple of hours at the very least from Savannah. Who knows whether this meteoric rise continues or not, and I had it up in front of me. The only narrative we have to look at is that on the 8th, tomorrow, at 6 a.m. UTC, so that will actually be in that'll be 10 hours. So it literally in 10 hours time from the making of this video, at least from the publishing, maybe a little under that, I suppose we'll call it 9 by the time I have it finished and posted. So tomorrow morning for me, UTC at 6 a.m, the Scrub Finance platform is going to be launching. So we'll have a quick dip into that as part of the outro, or some analysis at least, because I have some things to say, but stick around till the end. But that is what's causing this current pump, again, this continued narrative. And as I was saying, another psychological element I think is involved is just general FOMO buying. You can add up the factors. They sort of compound themselves as more and more people come across the chart and the price and watch things, or as we have more and more unique addresses joining our ecosystem. I'm just trying to place my phone back so my internet doesn't die. We can see then the effect of all of those factors add up to a much more massive climb than we might have seen if there wasn't the same news. So basically what I'm saying is that once you see 2 candles like this, especially like a 40% move, you've got the FOMO element in there. You've got the news narrative of the launch pads happening. You've got that further news narrative of, oh, I may as well get this token and hold it and start farming or something like that, because we're going to have the ICO and the launch pads through it for future reference. I'm going to hang on to it now just in case it's way more expensive down the line, and more expensive therefore to get involved in the ICOs. Add up those, that's what you're seeing here, is this massive increase. Now, I haven't been keeping enough of an eye on the market cap of SVN over the last while, but I think at the end of the day, that's kind of tied into the platform too, and it's not the best reading, I don't think, when you're looking at a reward token. I think the best reading of that narrative of the TVL of the platform increasing is the MSHARE token, which we'll look at next. So let's jump out over here. MSHARE there having another huge rise over the course of the week that we were missing. Isn't it so funny? I did try to tweet out about some of this stuff, but MSHARE is basically benefiting off of all of this solely because it's the revenue token of the platform Savannah Finance. So every trade, I'm not sure exactly how the code works down or what type, how their fork works exactly, but essentially most action in the Savannah finance ecosystem. So the launch pads that happen, the revenue accrued from swaps, all of this kind of thing is being, what would you say is, I don't want to say accruing again, but the MSHARE token is accruing all of that benefit, that revenue, and that revenue is represented in the token. So that's what you're seeing here, and that's why I was saying our market cap here, 282 million. So it's still quite small. It's tiny in the realms of DeFi and etc. But it is at least, I'm sure this is at least, I think, done, it's definitely increased. I'm sure I remember being kind of the 200 range, don't quote me, last week, but we've seen certainly a massive increase in the market cap. And the other stat you want to keep an eye on here is the liquidity as well. The amount of liquidity for a token is, it should be, at least, it depends on where you're looking and what reading or metric you're using, but it should be at least the amount of tokens that are, the value of the tokens that are circulating currently. Now that basically there's something to worry about with all of these tokens, which is that now we're starting to see, because I presume platforms are putting their burn schedules on the likes of Cronos and things like that our FTV is quite large. That basically means that not all of our tokens are vested, and essentially if you were to vest all of the tokens, if all of the circulating supply, if the total supply now was to be circulated instantly and the circulating supply was to match the total, then we would be essentially roughly 4x below our current value. So that's the only thing to remember with these platforms as we see these huge meteoric rises. We want to be careful of the vesting schedules and how much new money has come into the ecosystem, and where that money is. Is it locked in liquidity? Is it simply held in the token? How does it exist in the ecosystem? So that's something I need to do some more digging on myself. I want to do some of those videos about kind of metrics of the token and how things are looking overall at the moment. But definitely for myself personally, I'm looking at a serious cool off in the next while. I think in order for, I keep hearing this 50k MSHARE thing going around. I get that. I think it's cool. I'm really behind it. I hope the platform does really well. But the only thing to remember is that you need a 5x in these numbers, and you basically need, at the moment, the market cap would have to essentially reach the FDV currently. About what are we? I can't even bring up a monthly chart right now without doing digging. I think I'd have to type the days in as a shortcut. But anyway, we've barely printed 2 monthly charts or whatever, monthly candles. And I presume, I don't know exactly what it is, but the vesting schedule for most of these tokens would be over kind of 96 months or whatever. So we have a long road of supply of these tokens also being minted out to go through, and that is evidenced here by a very large FDV. So just something to remember now for like very long term. That's a very long term point, and just to be careful of meteoric rises like these with the MSHARE token. Now to do some, that kind of bit of semi TA on it. What did we see on the 5th of April was an 8% rise, opening at 16,000 and closing at 18. And our real bump was on the 30th of March. We had 14,000 open and a close of 17. And you can see before that, after the 17th of March, the Paddy's Day dip, we did the same as SVN and MMF. Basically, the ecosystems kind of matching each other. We just had a steady slow rise then of like what kind of 3 to 5% average from the 26th all the way up to that meteoric move then of the 30th. So that's what they points me to the fact that given as the problem as such, I'm trying to get my head straight now. The problem with it is that we had such massive moves within the course of very short days, and we haven't seen huge ranging. The only large sell event we had really was on the 31st of March. We did a 10% move back down off and opened at 17,000, closed at 15,000, roughly 15,236, and started moving. We printed a little bit of a top looking candle here, but still 26 million in volume. Was literally just, I would say, a bit of panic selling at the top after we had seen that print down on the 31st. And we have continued that move back up now again, which I presume again is ecosystem narrative pushing the value. We've got probably a combination of new money / the rise in TVL off the back of the platform doing these launch pads and etc. But that's why I say that we can expect some real cool off here. You can't, well, we'll see, I suppose, but is it going to be 2 launch pads a week? I don't think so. So I would expect us to cool off. Watch out for the $15,000 ranges, especially after we hit this 20. We're surely going to hit the 20 at some stage, but I would almost bet one that we're going to cool off after that. And by the time we hit that $20,000 range, will be after the launchpad events. Now we will see accrual in revenue from that. The token will have become more valuable by the nature of SVN being used up during these launchpads, but just based on sell pressure and narrative, we're going to see a cool off in volume here. You can see it is sort of averaged up on the daily here massively over the course since the end of February. We've had a real massive average increase in volume for the token. What goes up, as they say. So we're going to have to see that cool off. You can see some of our bigger spikes here were 30 million, 29 in volume, and 21. But our average before that, when there wasn't so much news around the ecosystem, was kind of 3, 7, 8. You can see that moving up very steadily here. We want to see that cool off again, and the price with it, in order for this run to be kind of healthier again. Basically, not to sound like FUD, it sounds very bad to wish for it, but we want to see some form of a slower correction like happened on the Paddy's Day, for a downward percentage move of like that, like kind of a 30% or somewhere within the 50% range. Again, those sort of mathematically significant ranges. So moving down to the 15,000, testing it and then moving back up would be healthier again than moving straight through the 20,000 here for me, because that's just a personal opinion. I don't think we have the market cap to support it, that by the time we see that kind of a value in MSHARE, we'll see so much profit taking, X amount of profit taking, and depending on what happens with Savannah Finance then itself, if we see a huge amount of sell pressure there and less of the ICOs going on and everything, then we would have some sort of a cascading sort of profit taking event and in a revenue share token that would be quite damaging to the overall TVL of the platform, not to mind the value of both tokens. So just to spread the cautionary tale here at the moment, that's what my thinking is for the next week. Want to see it touch the 20 and cool off right to the 15,000. I mean, if we can, again, LARP line's absolutely meaningless, but rather than doing that straight up, and let's put that in red, that would be a sort of a negative narrative for me. We would be much healthier, I think, to touch that 20 and be doing some sort of ranging. Again, that's over many more days than I would think. These lines would be much shorter than that again. So let's even undo that to be realistic about it, do something like this. And that's what we kind of want, is to squiggle around there in the $15,000 ranges. Would be a lot healthier for the moment. Allow the token to accrue revenue share, to actually accrue value itself, rather than just market cap through new money, rather than just new money buying the token itself, which is something that's evidenced by the volume. I mean, the last 24 hours we've had 25 million in volume itself, and that's all why this all of the while that's all while all of this is this token is being earned on the back of the SVN token, which has had its rise because of the launch pads. That to me is just a slightly dangerous relationship at the moment. So we want to watch out for that kind of cooling off back down. The platform overall won't be able to do launch pads the entire time. And to explain it, we've probably had a basically FOMO run here, and we want to watch out for the two of them. Sorry, didn't let MSHARE load there. Want to watch out for the two of them having their own cool off. So that's it for the Savannah platform. I kind of want to cover the launches and everything afterwards, so I'll kind of leave that at that, the price and everything. What are we at already? Half an hour. So let's just zip through. MMO, it's had a pretty ridiculous run, so we can see here, I presume this is simply ecosystem narrative, chasing the gains, chasing the APRs. Again, this is the reward token of their MMO, the Mad Meerkat Optimizer, their vaults as they call it. So just to put context to this, this token has a fixed supply, which is probably why its market cap has been rising so steadily and everything. You can see the market cap here is 47 million, and to our point earlier, that's why the FTV is exactly the same. The fully diluted value is the same because all of the total supply is in circulation. The fully diluted value, just to explain that, if I should have probably said it, is what's the kind of the formula again, is the price. It's essentially the market cap if all tokens were fully vested. Is that the way to explain it? But to put it in plain English, essentially your FTV is that's exactly it. Like if you were to take the market cap here, it's the same as the FTV because every token is circulating. So the market cap, what do they say? Calculated based on self-reporting. It doesn't give a self-explanation here, but the market cap is the price of the token by the circulating supply, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So if you see an FTV that is massively inflated, that means that not all of the tokens are in circulation. So you can see here the FTV is explained as total supply minus burnt supply multiplied by the price. So that minus burnt supply is, and that's one way of looking at it, because also that equation could look like the total supply minus the circulating supply, is it? No, that's not it. But that's my way of understanding the FTV anyway. I prefer to think of it that way, as the value once all tokens have been fully vested. So you can see here, anyway, back to the point. That is why MMO has had such a steady rise this entire time, again off the back of all of the launch pads happening in Savannah that affects MMF, and then through MMF, the vaults are being filled. People are either staking or, again, they're transacting, whatever it is. And all of that time, MMO is accruing revenue for those who hold it and are staking in the platform. So the more money that comes into the MMF ecosystem in general, you can pretty much predict that a certain amount of that is going to be liquidity locked, and a certain amount of that again is going to be liquidity locked on the vaults. And the MMO token, every time it's getting printed out, essentially the supply is being spread, it's being vested to more and more addresses, and every time that new money comes into the ecosystem, like here you can see in particular, we had a massive volume day of $12 million. You'll see a very significant increase in the value of the token because, again, fixed supply, there will be no more MMO vested. The reason I want to talk about that is because very recently, Mad Meerkat posted a proposal to change those tokenomics in the Mad Meerkat optimizer token and essentially to make its supply infinite so that it would. So basically, what they wanted to do was to be able to incentivize development and more progression in the ecosystem to host things like games and things like that. And that the MMO token would be useful for this because I suppose that's the MAD token is what it is. That's the click to play game. MMF is the exchange token. MMO kind of is the MMF alt. It's the alternative token for the Mad Meerkat ecosystem. That is the one that they would want to use in order to, in order to facilitate things like that, game development and that. And if you have a token of a fixed supply whose value is going to rise massively over time, that obviously would disincentivize especially later developers where the risk of the allocation that they end up having out of ICOs and things like that or whatever, if associated with MMO, could bottom out if there was a lot of sell pressure or negative consequences in the market, whereas a supply with a token with an infinite supply is going to be much less affected by that kind of pressure and therefore more stable for the likes of rewards for game development to use as liquidity for launch pads and ecosystem development, things like that. So that's what they launched a proposal for, and we can see here on the 6th of April we had a bit of a correction based on the news. We had a 12% correction off reaching a top on the 4th of 1282. So that's quite worrying for anyone who was in there enjoying those gains, especially if you'd achieved any kind of a dip back down to that $10 range on the 31st, and then we had basically since the April Fools, since the 1st, up to that top that we reached on the 4th at a 53% rise. Pretty meteoric, and you can see here over the course of the last 2 weeks and more printing a very, very strong trend here. MMF really going for it. I think my computer's kind of really struggling at the moment, so might have to just deal with the fan noise for now as is. But so the MMO token having a really interesting time here. I haven't actually seen what has come out of the vote, but this 12% drop, you can see, for me, is an indication of what people thought of that news. Quite a lot of support here. We're back up to the 1275. So you can see it's pretty much a strong uptrend here. We could pretty much bank on its continuation. The only indicator I would have of some negative consequences, especially of the vote announcement, would be this touch up. What did it go to here on the 4th? It hit a high of 1474. So you can see we're really reaching for that $15 mark. I suppose the market cap must have been moving towards 55 million or so, and really dropped back down in the course of that. So it really didn't want to live at that $15 range probably after that announcement. And I would say that the bump up was solely for the vote and things like that, essentially people were buying the news, but thinking buying the rumor and then sell after the vote kind of thing. To me, this 12% down indicator is what people thought of that vote. I haven't seen what's come out of it yet. I think that was it yesterday, the day before? I'll have to check in, but I didn't even think to for the stream. It's terrible. But you can see finding some support here again. That indicator, though, to me, be the possibly negative trend off the back of this is if we were printing lower lows towards that $12 range, that we could expect some strong correction off the back of MMO, because just like we were saying with that fixed supply, that may change one day, we don't know, but with that fixed supply, sell pressure is going to show up very immediately. It's also a reward token, so there'd be quite a lot of that liquidity is actually held as profit at the moment, and if we see corrective ranges towards that $10 anyway quickly, if we're moving through the $12.50 and down to the $11 ranges, you would see some sort of a kind of a cascade profit taking would be my guess. We might see some incidents like we did back on the 17th. I think the MMO didn't really suffer that actually itself. It didn't suffer it too much. But we might see something like we did with MMF or the other token Savannah, and that a bit of a, huge wake down might touch something like the 850 or something like that range and then just click back up. The only thing is that MMOs seeming really stable now. It hasn't had many events like that. Possibly because, again, even though it is a reward token and will be taken for profits, hasn't experienced that kind of a panic. By nature of its name, it's the vaults. That's where a lot of the supply is probably held, and if people want to take their rewards out for certain of the pools that have paid out in MMO, they'd be losing profit there. So, and again, the ecosystem looking really valuable in general. We're seeing a very strong trend of holding here for a lot of these tokens. MMO looking very valuable with a fixed supply, but that could really change then if they make it infinite and open it up for the likes of development. Would be great for the ecosystem, but again, hard for holders to understand, possibly even those who know what they're talking about, like why change the supply, why not make another alt token and make that infinite and just let MMO accrue the revenue from it, even that kind of thing. Maybe that's not how things work. The team wouldn't be able to do something like that, but be an interesting one to keep an eye on at the moment, watching out for the $12.50 and the $12 ranges, and after that I would imagine we see some strong profit taking. So we want to break that sort of it's not a trend line, obviously. We are not in a downwards trend, I would say, given only 3 to 4 days of price action, but we just want to break steadily through that line here and to continue the upwards trend so far that we've been having, which is very much the stronger signal at the moment. It's just basically continued upside trend, but we just want to make sure we're moving with that line. It's not proper there, but you can see what I mean. At least we want to make sure we're moving generally in that direction, and don't see some corrective downside here. One to check out, as I say, news wise, just check in for that yourself, and possibly on the Twitter I'll do a tweet about it and stuff. Must look into it again, what came out of the vote or when it's going to be held, but that's shaky ground for me there on MMO. So the MAD token we'll just cover real quick. Absolutely mad, didn't we say it? Since last Wednesday, I think it was last Wednesday when it launched, was it? Yeah, it was the 30th here, so that's the Wednesday. I think it launched, what was it, 58.60 cents, and did an absolutely meteoric kind of ICO rise up to the $9. Had huge correction, as you might expect, but has done just a complete and utter moonshot from there since. So at the moment, we've looked at the MAD token touch that well above that $15 range. It looks like it doesn't really want to live there at the moment, but we have seen, if we have anything to look back on, we have seen it do the same thing, kind of moving up into the $9 range, corrected all the way down to $650, did a small bit of ranging then the next day and continued pretty much after that up to this week. So again, we're looking at days. We don't really know. It's hard to say. The market cap is at 102 million. Fixed supply, again, same thing. So, you just want to guess how much new money do we see coming into the game. The only thing I'll say about the MAD game is that, you can pretty much list the amount of people involved by the holders of the MAD Meerkat NFTs, and I presume, is it the MMT tree houses? Are they going to be involved somehow? Maybe you'll have to hold one of them. I'm not exactly sure. But that, you can gauge the involvement in the game, and then a little bit in the outside people involved in the ecosystem who just want to get the token and try and benefit from the profit off that. I would say for the moment, the next bit of news to watch for, obviously, is the announcement of the game coming out. I believe they were in development and they had said, don't worry, you don't have long to wait, to people excited about it. So once we see the game announced, we would, in the days leading up to that announcement, probably see another little pop off. I would imagine it's pretty easy to see the market cap at 150 and ranging over the next couple of, half a week to a week, with, again, rumors of announcements and then announcements. And then that will see us at around the $15-16 range. The only thing is, now I could be totally corrected on that. We might see a completely ridiculous market cap by next week. It's a thing of, like, even though we know there's only so many players who will be able to be involved in the game, earn the token, use the token, you're going to see FOMO ecosystem narrative around all of the news and the narrative around the game. So who knows, we could see some further shots up. Maybe the $20 is a range. Maybe the market cap is going to go to that, like, 300 to 500 million, $500 million. But I think that might be slightly unrealistic. Who knows? You can always be corrected. It's just really, really hard to know. For the moment, I would expect we're looking at some cooling off. A watch for that kind of touching the 13 again. We're definitely moving into the 12 to 13 range there, and hope then at the same time we can just hold above the $10 really, would be my instinct. I would say all of that is fair game, especially after this sort of moonshot here on the 6th of April. You can see how much correction we did within it. It was 16% correction during the 6th of April alone, but at the same time a 37% range. So, huge volatility in the token, massive upside trend right now. Always want to watch for the cool off. Might be an opportunity if you're very interested to buy the dip in the next couple of days. The way it's looking, I would say that these are kind of two very toppy indicators, and that we will see some sort of a range within the 15, very much within the $15 to $10. The only other hopium would be that just, again, continued FOMO ecosystem narrative, looking forward to the game, people practically saving into this damn thing, that will push it all the way up above and keep ranging into that 16, 17. I think after that, if we can find some confirmed bottoms around the $15 range, then the 20 is definitely fair game over the course of a few weeks at least. Anyway, I think that's how long it would take. It would be a few weeks, but again, all of this really just depends on the news announcements and what the psychology is then around it. How many more people who aren't involved in the game will want to be involved in the token? Will there be, is there a lot of liquidity and farming incentives, things like that? We'll see. I haven't even looked at that myself. I would presume that there's a MAD staking farm at least, or a pool, or I think it's the pools on Mad Meerkat. I would presume that there's a Mad pool already in which you can earn MMF or something like that. Wouldn't be surprised if there's something in the MMO vaults too. So, that could be its further incentivization around the token. Bang, all the way up. That market cap could easily end up in a 5x. Who knows? With the craziness that goes on here, the realistic expectation, I would say, is 150 to 250 over the next couple of weeks. That's what I would say is very much realistic. And that's again with huge incentives plus FOMO narrative around the game. So we'll see. Quite a lot spent there on MAD itself alone. So the one thing I just wanted to cover was the amount of ranging still happening in NESS, but it's a protocol that I'm kind of excited about myself. I think it's very cool what they're doing, and you can see them sort of mirroring at least things going on in bigger places in DeFi. I'll say that. So they have this pool coming out where you can, I think, pool wrapped BTC, Dark Sky, and CRO, I think. It was all of those four, and they're calling it the Big Four, to earn the NESS token. The NESS token. So this is the revenue share again for the Darkness Finance, the stablecoin platform. Which do I have it in here? I don't have it added to the favorites here, but the Darkness token, while it's been spiking pretty hugely up and down, is very much retaining its peg at the moment. So that's kind of encouraging. All we'll want to watch for is the ranging in that to kind of cool off. I might just bring it up really quickly and we can jump back then to NESS. So let's bring up Darkness US dollar. Where's our pair? Wouldn't you think that it would just come up? Oh yeah, that's it. Wouldn't you think it would just come up first? So this is its pair with USDC. I'll try and see. I don't know. Maybe there isn't a Darkness Crow pair. DUST Crow seems not, or DUSD seems not. It must be the one I'm watching. So in the other thing, so obviously it's just paired with USDC because that's the biggest stablecoin. You can see we've had some like kind of ridiculous moves here. What was this? There was only like just as we were making the video. So if you had managed to see this, I don't think that's technically how it works because the slippage comes into play, and this is partly how a stablecoin would work, that this kind of thing shouldn't affect you. But you can see it did some massive kind of spikes here inside of its peg, so it should just stay at $1 the entire time. But of course it's an algorithmic fractional stablecoin, no less. So what happens here is, I think if you get a large sell or a large buy, and that's in particular usually, I think, unfortunately, this is kind of, these are kind of not planned events, but they're caused by something like a sandwich event on chain. So quite literally too much DUSD being bought, Darkness US dollar being bought, and then same sold within whatever the one block or whatever it is. And that's how the token kind of excuse the term, but craps itself and loses its peg for however long. And of course, if you're an insider, you can take advantage of this. But if you're watching it hard enough, I'm not sure. I don't think so. If you were to have seen this spike here and then been watching it and thinking what's going to happen here, and then boom, saw it go down and then tried to buy, you can see that these are all 15-minute candles. So literally within the 15 minutes it has corrected its peg. We won't bother doing that because it'll be a bit of a ridiculous exercise, but I'm sure if you went down, no, come on, we might as well, if you went down to the 1 minute, yeah, you'll see it happens over just minutes. The correction off this move here, that's the algorithm probably kicking in, correcting it, and then the same here. And what happens here is that the supply isn't minted anymore, and then below here, now this is different because it's Darkness US dollar. So basically, maybe what happened here is that a large part of what was backing the fractional algorithm, so maybe like a huge sell volume, a huge sell in UST or something like that, or DAI, one of the tokens specifically causes it to drop off the peg here, whatever it is. This can also be partly how the token makes its revenue as well. So there's all sorts of interesting things possibly going on there, but you can see over the course of time maintaining the peg relatively well besides spikes like that. I was going to point to one back here that was quite significant, 106 range there. But whatever this is shouldn't be too much to worry about, be something to dig into the kind of on chain. If we could go back and look at the trades and see was this move played in any way or what happened with it. But very interesting. So regardless, anyway, the NESS token being the revenue share for that, the Darkness US dollar stablecoin, and just to cover that kind of, again, ranging, now that we have the token out, the Darkness US dollar token is out, the NESS room was announced. So essentially it got hit by the MAD token launch here back on the 29th. We had a range down over the course towards the 31st of, what was it for us? About 25%. And then it corrected instantly off the back of the announcement of the NESS room, which is essentially the boardroom, same thing as the boardroom in Sky, which is where you can stake for, I think, about 500% APR at the moment, and you get Dark Zero LP back, which is quite an attractive option. So I'm expecting that to attract some attention in the end. And then we're doing some ranging again back down here to that 60 cents range. You can see that this token is one of the same that suffers that thing of not having all of its supply fully vested. So the FTV is quite large in comparison. The only thing about NESS you can see here is that it's been very stable after the ICO pop and drop. It kind of got through all of that very quickly, you can hear, and then you can see here, and then settled right into that 50-60 cents range. Well, actually really 50 has been the downside at the moment. Some correction after the NESS room announcement again, which is probably just selling the news event. So what I'm expecting here at the moment is possibly some ranging down again, but over time from here, with the TVL rising, the NESS room being used and more NESS being staked in it, NESS being earned through certain protocols and things like that, and the Darkness US dollar hopefully finding some more utility / being used more, then we will see hopefully some upside after a short bit of ranging, kind of expecting that maybe even 2 to 3 weeks more ranging. Then we'll stretch ourselves out to at least kind of the end of the month like that, and possibly down a bit, I would imagine, possibly. And then after that, we might see some accrual in revenue from this platform. Again, more news narrative coming out about the dark crypto ecosystem, possibly some more utility from the Darkness US dollar itself. Then we would see some corrective upside ranges. But certainly at the moment, just a bit of a downside range to expect here for NESS without too much news narrative in the ecosystem. The only thing we can depend on too is the stablecoins becoming very popular. Whenever we have big swings, we can usually expect that, stablecoins are going to be very popular, by nature of them being stable in the face of a market drop and things like that. So again, off the back of that, you would expect that the likes of NESS and the Darkness US dollar platform itself would technically actually benefit rather than losing out. Not necessarily now that like the likes of NESS would stay stable during a market crash or anything like that, but hopefully again the Darkness US dollar platform picking up some popularity for itself just by being stable, and therefore the NESS revenue share token benefiting off the back of that. So we'll keep an eye on NESS for the moment. Another one I'll have a look at quickly in the same place, Dark Crypto, well, slightly different but same team at least as the Darkness Finance protocol, is Sky. So let's use our auto to zoom in here because it's a bit of a mess on our daily, looking at the ICO there. you can see that as we were kind of expecting, we had a real top here. So back on the 24th. So what was that? It was the Thursday, actually, was it? Yeah, the Thursday. That was our top, and we hit a high there of 1700. And you can see that it really just did not want to live there. We had the Mad Token launch, and other news narratives in the ecosystem just sent us absolutely skyrocketing back down and touching a low on the 31st of, what was it exactly, 1188. On the 31st, on this solid down candle here of 10%. You can see we tried to touch back up here on the 2nd of April, hitting a high of 1356, but really didn't want to live there. And what we're looking at the moment, unfortunately, is sort of a downside corrective range here for Sky. Just something to keep an eye on. I've been watching this myself elsewhere, just watching for Sky to break through this trend, hopefully to create a new upwards trend here. Again, they're just LARP lines now. We're just drawn on the charts where it becomes very tricky. But if we look at kind of like just one of our bottom points here, just a random bottom point back there on the 6th, and we kind of range that up, you can see it's very, very tight triangle here. So either of the ranges are going to indicate, sort of either hopium or danger. So basically, ideally, we want to look at continuing this trend. But as I was saying in the other videos over the course of the past week and stuff, quite a dangerous uptrend here. And the hopium at the moment, let's get rid of our LARP lines. The hopium at the moment is that we're just going to break that trend line there at the top that we just saw, not be setting too much of a downwards trend here, and that we can move off this kind of $1,400 we're at. At the moment, we're looking at closing at 1,392, and we're after, it's 9:30 UTC. You can see on the clock down here. So we're looking at the last 4-hour candle, and we're looking at closing the last 4-hour candle here, and we are printing downwards again on the daily, unfortunately. So just one to keep an eye on. We want to break that line that we saw there a while ago and not be setting a downwards trend continuously, and hopefully move on, setting higher lows and match the trend, kind of level it out that we have been seeing. If you were watching, you might remember I was kind of asking, I was hoping myself almost, feels guilty to do it, but I was thinking that hopefully we hit a high of 1,500 around this run here, and that we cooled off earlier, that would be healthier because we don't want to do too much running up. And that's kind of what happened here now, hitting that $1,700 range with what we can guess is a lot of new money in, and then a lot of dumping for the other narratives in the ecosystem mainly. You can pretty much expect that that's what the cause of it is. So we want to make sure that we're not setting that downside trend, and that just to keep in mind that the $1,250 range all the way up to $1,500 is a very important one to move within. You can see that we have dipped here on the 31st of March again, and bring it up again. Like we opened at $1,399 and we closed at $1,246. You can see that playing out there. If we look back at the 19th of March, we opened at $1,208 and closed at $1,355. Huge ranges there, and a very important psychological range, kind of 1,250 to 1,500. What I ideally would look for is some more ranging with here, possibly some more downside would be healthier. Unfortunately, it sounds like a bad thing to call or look for, but that would be certainly a healthier one at the moment, because we are going to we look at some dangerous correction if we were to continue a move of that speed for any longer. So ideally, the best case scenario is that we range within here and pop off the kind of 1,250 and be looking towards that $1,500 range again. What we want to watch out for immediately is breaking that downwards trend line, set some higher lows, and move off from here. The only hopium is that hopefully we have done that for a couple of days now, even though we've seen some quite drastic corrections. We know $1,500 by looking at all of the past few days of action is a significant range. We can say at the same time, hopefully, we don't have any lower lows being set at the moment. So that's it for the Sky token and the Dark Crypto, Darkness Finance kind of platforms, the two of them in general. What I want to bring up at the end of the video, we'll do this first. We'll do Cronos so we can stick it in there in the chapters real quick. Cronos had an announcement. They are doing some upgrades to their protocol. Essentially, there's going to be some new incentives and some interesting things happening in the ecosystem. While we had been gone, we'd been dropping off again and again, watching out for those ranges of the $4 and below. And sure enough, we hit it, and we hit the $3, I think, was it? Yeah. So on the 6th of April, yesterday, hitting a low of 311. So we've popped back up off the back of that on the announcements that have been made, the upgrades to the ecosystem. But the volume back upwards hasn't been what we might expect or hope for. What we want to see in order to see correction in the token is a steady upwards average volume trend. You can see that has been trending downwards for a long time after the initial hype wave. You want to see that turn around and be doing more like the kind of the 500,000 to 1 million that we were seeing before, and we're kind of averaging below that now. So what are we looking at? On the day before, we opened on the 5th of April at $4 and we closed at $3.50. So for the moment, the hopium is to see correction up to the $4 and above. The realistic situation is that we're going to do some ranging in and around here, the 380 range and below over the next while. So in the next couple of days, that's one to keep an eye on. We're very bottomed out now. The only reason we might expect it to kind of level off is that the sell pressure and the volume itself has leveled off. But again, would be very careful of this and watch out for anything like the candles printing lows down to the $2. If that first figure changes, be very psychologically significant, and we'd see continued pressure from there. So the only thing we can hope for really on CRN at the moment is just plain ranging. So just at the end of the video, wanted to bring this one up. Our new launch and one of the contributors to the volatility we were talking about, particularly the rise in popularity of SVN as it has been used for these launch pads. If you were dedicated enough and you've stayed around till here, thank you very much for doing so. But I might also tweet this section of the video out as its own chapter or something, because Pegasus Dollar here launched as a algorithmically pegged token to METF. So we have seen these algorithmic forks, a lot of them, but these algorithmic pegged tokens in a couple of other places in the ecosystem, which is great, can be very beneficial to plenty of things. But the only thing I will say is that I've seen a lot of Twitter action around the PES token, a lot of excitement, and also a lot of disappointment. A lot of people really bummed out that they're losing all of their money, essentially. Just want to note, not to be facetious and sound offensive to anyone, of course, but we should always do the reading. We should know that this pegged token should, if all things go to plan, be moving towards the price of this one we haven't been covering or looking enough at yet. I suppose it's my lack of interest. That's terrible. But the Mad Meerkat METF, the Meerkat Exchange Traded Fund, that's what it should stand for anyway. And this thing, has had its own bit of fun, and it's going to be used as a governance token. I believe it doesn't have a fixed supply. It's going to be vested as well. but certainly had done some corrective downside ranging after some initial excitement about it. Was looking very level and stable, and then all of a sudden, massive, huge hype rise. Now, I presume, oh, what was this again? I had figured out what exactly this was. Was it maybe the government's proposal? Is that what it was for MMO? But I think MMO was being used in that. Same time, maybe even just the news of an algorithmic peg token to METF was what caused this massive bump. But regardless, you can see over here on the 3rd of April, we had a 55% move. The 2nd, we had a 62%, and the 1st, it kind of started that off the April Fools with 25%. Small bit of rumor buying here in the 31st and 30th before. So to add all of those up, let's say we had a 280% move and it correcting essentially all the way back down, probably after the launch of the Pegasus dollar token. And the reason to bring it all back around, the reason I'm bringing it up and talking about it is that a lot of people seem to be giving out about the token when the plan should be that this token, PES, Pegasus Dollar, is supposed to move towards the peg. You can see that the pair here, the way of measuring the price of Pegasus Dollar is PES METF. It is its price in METF. You can see here it's worth 8.49 METF. This token, if it's working as it should be worth 1 METF. So it still has 8x to go down, 8.49x. So literally it has to go down by 8 times and meet the price of METF. So this is terrible. We have to bring it back up, or even if I escape this and just command and backspace, bring up the price of METF here. It's almost 10x below it. It's $129. So that's just one to be really careful of, to spread the word around to people if they're excited about the Pegasus dollar token or any of the opportunities for earning on there and stuff. Definitely one, nothing on the channel is financial advice, but for once, this is probably one of the places in which I would say do not buy this in the next couple of days. This is not going to be remaining at the same value as far as I can tell, unless I'm completely missing something. But I've read the white paper. It says algorithmically pegged to METF, and unless I'm watching a scam METF, then this thing is not at peg. So definitely going to come down. Don't need to do any TA on PES. There's your TA. We've got 8x crushing downwards moves to do. Don't buy. And then all the while, the share token for the same tomb fork that we've seen a lot of places is sitting down here way closer to peg, just at 1.85 METF, and is seeing top signals ranging downwards, has huge opportunities in the MMO vaults, and equally the same people are very disappointed and wondering what the hell is going on. Now this is a post ICO dip, but usually with the revenue share tokens you can even possibly see them do something crazy, like straight away after this is an info line and get rid of that. Straight away after the launch they do what we've seen here. They go straight up and then they come down and then they range back up and do some meteoric stuff. That's pretty much what you can see with Sky, actually, as the same the same setup. And this one is doing a real, I'm trying to think about how to delete this at the same time. This is doing a real range downwards at the moment, and again people very disappointed in everything. So I don't know why I can't get rid of the LARP line now all of a sudden. That's great fun. All I'm doing is drawing them everywhere. So oh yes, I'm still just drawing lots of dots. But the share token then is ranging completely downwards. Now, the only thing I'll say about this is that actually it's quite a healthy share token ICO. This is just a 4 hour, I think it's 3-4 days. Is it 4? So it's 5. essentially 5 public at least. So it's had its first bit of uptrend here now on the daily since all of that. And I would say that this is actually quite healthy ICO wise for one of these share tokens. See it go down, often it can go back below the ICO price and then do some pretty heavy rising, because as the platform gets used at all, it gains the revenue of that. So it's quite unfortunate that if you're in SPES, you're gaining the revenue of all of those who are swapping into and out of and using the Pegasus dollar platform on PES too, while it's above PEG. So just one to be really, really careful of. I would say with SPES, we can continue the downside just based on the negative narrative around the ecosystem and the launch and everything. But after that, if there is anything to algorithmically pegging a coin to METF, then the share token on that platform should do pretty well. But yeah, it's just, I'm wondering now as a bit of an outro for this, and that's why I was saying I would keep it to the end of the video. I'm going to bring it back up here on my phone in front of me. We have Scrub Finance coming up then as well, which is an algorithmic token pegged to Savannah Finance, I believe. So their main token is going to be another Tomb Fork spun off of Savannah. I'm trying to look for the website again. I had it up in front of me before. But just to double check this, the only point to make about a lot of this, let's bring you back over to some sort of a transition here. While I speak, I can bring up a Chrome window for us. So that we can have a look at some of this stuff. I should have planned this ahead. I apologize extremely, but I'm literally typing in. I know this is the dangerous way to do it, living life on the edge. Scrub.finance. And just so I can confirm and we're not just mouthing off, I'll bring you back up here. It's loading for me now at the moment. I think the TVL was at $8 the other day. I thought that was quite cute. I haven't connected the wallet here now, so there is no wallet installed yet. Isn't that disgraceful? Under the Cronos Watcher, it's elsewhere. But yeah, oh no, it shows up. There we go. $9 TVL now because nothing's launched. Nothing's happening yet. I'm only taking the mic. But this is, pegged to the price of one SVN via seniorage. Stake your Lion SVN and stake your Tiger SVN. So essentially, Lion is their own SVN token. It's the same thing. And then Tiger is the same as MSHARE. Just let that kind of sink in. So the Lion token is pegged to Savannah, and it's basically exactly the same platform, essentially. The only thing I'm thinking about this is that based on, and this is other people's experience, I will say I should, kind of collate some evidence and bring some thoughts together and obviously do a video. We know there are other people in the ecosystem very, very good at doing that too. So I want to hear what they have to say as well. My opinion is that this is exactly the type of behavior that leads to a cascade crash on a chain for all of those ecosystems. Now, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but essentially, as we get bigger, the risk of these cascades happening and being catastrophic gets bigger as well. It would be one thing if we were the chain we are right now and something like this, these two platforms were already in existence and established, and say it was kind of like MMF and Savannah and Scrub Finance had been really successful, but all of a sudden something happens. There's negative news around the ecosystem, or worse still, there's a rogue dev or anything like that. As soon as one of these tokens bottoms out, its peg is going to suffer as well. And as there's sell-off in the share token and all of this, then we have danger elsewhere. Now, that's all very generalized. Obviously, part of the mechanics built into these platforms is to stop the likes of that. It's just, I'm bringing it up because it seems a bit like, what in the name of Because based on what we're seeing here with the Pegasus launch and the amount of disgruntled people we're seeing who are buying algorithmic pegged stable coins and not well pegged coins, they're not stable, and not knowing exactly what they are. I don't know, maybe I'm kind of bringing it up so that we can say I need to put out a tweet myself and say, hey Scrub and hey Pegasus and the likes, you gotta guys gotta do your due diligence. I know it's DeFi and we're all DJs, we like to say that, but not everyone knows this stuff and people are getting hurt here. Just a point to make. As I say, might be, I was saying earlier in the video, might be a chapter I kind of tweet out on its own just to see what everyone thinks. And do you agree? Obviously, what I was saying about the cascades isn't a given rule. That's not even how it would play out. If the ecosystem is in any way stable, then the bond system should stop the likes of that crushing everything. But at the same time, just general points like why in launch are people not being told more about how these tokens work, or at least I wasn't in the Discord. How is it that there's so many people in the likes of Twitter and around the place in spaces and things and saying, oh yeah, I got so wrecked on PES when it was an algorithmic peg to METF. Fair enough if you're in the launch and you committed SVN tokens and then you kind of know how that's going to work out for you in the end. But if you're not and you bought the day after and you watched it plummet and then go back up and then continue to just plummet from there and wondering what the hell is going on, why are we not shouting about this a bit more and how these things work? I suppose it's a good point that I'll keep supporting them too, the others who are breaking down projects and telling us how things are going to play out and stuff. I do apologize. I didn't even know about the launch. I knew about Pegasus Dollar, but I confused it as well with the other Phoenix platform. I kind of mixed them up, and remember even once saying to myself, oh, wow, they're launching through MMF now? Okay, cool. It wasn't that other Phoenix platform. It was Pegasus Dollar, its own thing. So even that kind of came out of the woodwork for me. So if you were that excited, you're into the MMF ecosystem, wow, they're launching a token, great, I'm just going to buy it. Whatever it is, I think that's what's happening a lot, and people not doing the reading. So I don't want to give out about anyone, to anyone, at anyone, but just a discussion to raise. So I'll probably, as I say, tweet this out as a chapter, get some comments going down below, see what you thought. Certainly anyway, from now, from the Cronos Watcher, back with you. Hopefully this one bloody saves, because it's been an hour and 20, but it should be working now. And we will see you either Friday or Saturday, but certainly be on touch on Twitter in the meantime. So talk to you then.